making these invisible boxes visible so that we can then choose to dismantle boxes and choose not only to dismantle them, but to set ourselves free.
Hello there, it's me, Steve Mellor, and welcome in to Growth Ready, the podcast that allows high performers to reveal the reality behind what it means to ready yourself for growth, the personal and professional challenges along the growth journey, while also allowing the high performance executive coach in me to satisfy his curiosity toward what drives optimal performance. Today we talk coach to coach with Tracy Clark, who after being a managing director of a firm she eventually sold in an 8-figure sale, finds herself today challenging founders and leaders to consider how their inherited beliefs could be what's stopping them from readying themselves for the growth they can truly create. Hello and welcome back into the most recent installment of Growth Ready. I am always excited to be welcoming on a guest, but it's always just that little bit more fun when I get to do it with a fellow Brit. Even though I'm over here in the US, you'll probably notice, as listeners do from time to time, when we have a fellow Brit come on, is my English accent will probably kick in just that little bit stronger on this episode. But I am so delighted to be welcoming Tracy Clark all the way from London, England today. But Tracy, before we start to get to know you through this conversation and all the great insights I know you're going to be providing us today, I want to ask you what I ask everybody as we get started. What does it mean to you to be growth ready?
Well, firstly, thank you for inviting me.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, being growth ready means being in a state of intense curiosity, radical open-mindedness, with a real willingness to proactively experiment. So especially when the outcome is unknown, which is in the majority of cases.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about choosing discovery over certainty. And Steve, what I see is when leaders operate from that place, it just ripples out through their organization. It ripples out through their teams. It makes their teams braver. It makes their ideas bolder. And it builds momentum.
Oh.
So I believe that it's this state that gives you a commercial advantage and makes you growth ready.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And when you can just tie a bow in that response with this idea of the competitive advantage, I think that's always really interesting to hear it from that standpoint. But intense curiosity, radical open-mindedness, practical experiments, and then but something that I heard in there, which is where I immediately want to go to, is that discovery over certainty. And the reason why I immediately just gravitate towards that is that as humans, we like to know, we like to be certain, we want the guarantee. There's so much science behind, you know what, if the benefit is not 2.5 to 3 times greater than me just doing nothing at all, then I might just do nothing at all, because at least I can know for sure then that I can't fail, there's no risk involved or anything like that. So what you're telling me here and you're telling us is this idea that why not lean into discovery? And so I'm curious, let's start with the certainty part of it. So when you say discovery over certainty, what is it you're seeing maybe in your work or you've seen over your career where you maybe think when we stay in a state of certainty for too long, we don't necessarily benefit from that. So what have you maybe picked up on over the years?
Well, I've seen it personally, and I see it with the leaders that I work with. As you say, certainty is what gives you that comfort blanket, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, you want to be able to look at your figures and be certain you're going to make that margin, that profit. That's important. And you want to be certain that your teams are going to be to perform.
Yeah.
But Steve, we live in a world that's not certain. I mean, my goodness, look around us. Look at the changes. AI, all sorts of growth and change and economic change and changes of government. And I think when people stay in their lane, in what they know, they stagnate. And then they hit waves of stagnation, frustration, stress, and they just wonder, why is this business not growing? So what I always advocate is, there's a beauty with sitting in this unknown, sitting in this world is changing. We don't know where it's going. But when you embrace the mixture of curiosity, open-mindedness, and proactive experimentation, you see it a bit like a lab. You start to test different hypotheses. You become a bit vulnerable, actually. And you start to look at your own assumptions that you're holding to be true, maybe about the way you lead, maybe about the market, your customers, and you start to challenge them. What if there's a different way? And I find that this curiosity is very freeing. And it just opens you up to different perspectives and ideas. And I've seen all sorts of founders in particular who have really challenged some of the inherited views they've got. They've gone into markets so much quicker because instead of someone telling them it's going to take them 7 years to break into X market, they go, well, what if I take a different approach? And they've seen that it takes them between 6 months and a year. But that takes moving out of certainty and moving into the unknown and playing with possibility.
I love it. And I think the notion of challenging your inherited views, I think that immediately gets to the source of the problem. And it's a problem we all have. We all have our inherited views. We've been influenced through childhood. We've been influenced through our social settings. We've been influenced through our work settings, whatever it may be. There's going to be an influence on us that is forming the very beliefs and the perspectives and all this kind of stuff that we have on whatever it is we're doing. That's just the human experience. But to actually just simply acknowledge that it has in fact been inherited. And what I like about that term inherit is that there's almost this understanding that maybe we weren't the one in control of the influence that was coming on us, like the way you would inherit someone's estate if they were to pass away. It's like maybe you had nothing to do with that estate. They're the one that did it, but you now have the estate. It's the same thing with our behaviors. When we inherit a certain perspective and a certain view, it's actually not necessarily a fault of our own. But what I'm hearing in what you're saying is that the fault would almost be not simply acknowledging the fact that we've inherited it, and to also not do anything about it. That's where the mistake is. So when we actually, as you're alluding to here with leaders, with founders, that moment of just saying, hey, I know I have a perspective that needs to be challenged. And until it is, I will in fact be operating in these places of certainty when, as you're saying here, we need to be leaning more into discovery. In order to do that, we need to accept, hey, there's some beliefs and there's some perspectives that, quite frankly, it's time for me to challenge, right?
Yeah, and I think it's going, even if you're not sure whether you've got these inherited beliefs that serve you or not, it's being curious and open-minded to looking at a different perspective.
Right.
I mean, Steve, my view is that these inherited beliefs are all like invisible boxes, and we live in multiple invisible boxes. And it's around really thinking about, what are these boxes that I might be living in, and making these invisible boxes visible so that we can then choose to dismantle boxes and choose not only to dismantle them, but to set ourselves free of these beliefs and to choose ones that are more in line with who we are and what we want to create and the impact we want to create.
Well, I always like to, and again, we can get more now into what it is you're doing today and how we've got to this point. Because as I mentioned to you before we started recording, you're a coach, and I from time to time, every 2 or 3 months, I love having coaches come on to build upon philosophies, to build upon ideas that we have on this show. And for me as a coach, quite frankly, to always continue my own education and to continue learning from others. And this idea of the boxes, what I love about it is no one's coming to you knowing of their boxes. You're helping them become aware. You're helping them become aware of their boxes. And so I want to start there. Like when you think of when you're working with someone for the first time, when that leader, when that founder has decided enough's enough, I need to start challenging my perspective on things. What does that initial process for you look like when it comes to simply helping someone see, like, hey, that there are these boxes and they've been there for a while and it's time that we maybe start doing some work around them?
Mm. For me, it's around really, I always start with connecting people back to their vision and really getting people to think about if anything was possible. So I automatically take them into a scenario. There are no boxes. If anything was possible, what would you love to create? And I use the word love because it's emotive and it's overriding logic. It's not going to what do you think is possible, which goes
Right.
with the belief. It's like, what would you love to create? And then I get them really to express this. Why is this important? What's the impact you would create? And then we look at, okay, if this is the impact you want to create, how far away are you from that currently? And then we look at what are some of those frustrations? Where are you banging against these invisible boxes that you don't know are there? Where's the stress? Where's the frustration? What are the roadblocks that you're hitting? And so I help them there go, okay, what if that was different? What if we could create a change there? And I'm opening their mind to the fact that there is a different way to their vision, not just the way they're going.
Yeah, I like it.
And Steve, often what they find is that when they start to understand and see these invisible boxes, they understand or they realize that they can go further, much further than they currently are. And that actually the solution lies with them. Because one of the big things that one of the challenges I know when my brother and I ran our own business was you can get very influenced by this is what the market's like, this is what's possible. But actually, what we want to do is start to realize we are not dependent on outside circumstances. What we take, not sure I like the word control, but when we take ownership
Yeah.
back to ourselves and really look that actually we are creating our world and we're creating the world through the lenses we view it, we have the choice to change those lenses and those metaphorical boxes.
Yeah, good job on the reframe with the control to the ownership. But I will say that, you know, the the idea of us not being able to just say, hey, it's the market's fault. It's this fault. Like, don't get me wrong, these are all influences. They all play their part. There's no doubt about it. Maybe now more than ever, one could argue. However, it's harder to own. It's harder to own and say, I'm going to create it and actually believe that and do the work around that. And that's what I appreciate about what you're saying is that, again, if we're gonna come back to the idea of what it means to be growth ready and the way in which you answered that question, so much of the intense curiosity, the radical open-mindedness, these sort of things, these aren't behaviors that we just wake up and start doing. They are practiced and we decide that we are going to do them. And that's what you alluded to here, that the creation of what our vision could be and to own the fact that we're the one responsible for the creation, that is so much harder to do than to just say, well, it's not my fault, it's the market's fault. Well, it's not my fault, it's because this individual isn't on the bus and they need to be on the bus, whatever it may be. And I think that, I'm just curious, even from your experience, what does that typically look like in your work when you are working with an individual and you're potentially hearing a lot of the finger pointing and you're trying to get them to almost own what it is that they in fact can create for themselves?
Yeah, I think blame is such a comment. It's so easy, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
it's
easy.
human tendency.
Came on board as the market was easier. If that client just paid the bill. But it's really also, I get them to look at how their current stories are playing out. So
Mm,
how is this narrative that you are telling me about, how is this playing out in your experience?
mm,
And how is it actually just reinforcing your experience?
yeah.
And then I show them, I use the metaphor of a tree. And I show them that the conventional trunk of a tree is what I associate with skills, and actions and strategy. It's visible. It's above the ground. But actually, a tree can't grow without strong roots. If the roots aren't strong, the storm comes along and it knocks it over. What we need to do is go into our metaphorical roots, which are our mindset, our self-awareness, and most importantly, our self-concept.
Mm,
And I get them to see that when they can create and get clarity on the version of themselves at the bottom of the roots who has created this huge impact, then that is where we're building from.
mm,
And they start to see that when they show up differently, when they grow, their impact changes, their mindset changes, the way they interact with the client and the market, their ideas all shift. So they see that it starts with them. It
mm.
starts with owning who are you being and how are you showing up.
Yes.
And I always anchor when I hear the blame, I go, oh, who's talking there?
Right.
Old version or the version who's achieved this?
Right.
And that's the reset point.
I love it. And again, we're gonna come back to self-concept. I think that's a term we've not heard too often on the show, if ever. And um, some the fact that you immediately went to story when I asked you that question, I think is so important for folks to hear. There we have an inner dialogue and we have this inner narrative, and quite frankly, it is doing the majority of the talking. And I think
And
one
shaping.
and shaping. Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. And I think in our world of coaching, it's one of the hardest I to practice. And I actually told this to a new client recently. I said, when I have a long day, I actually have one today coming up as we're recording this. When I have a longer day of client work, I get in the car typically afterwards and I just rub my head. And I'm just like, my head hurts. That must have meant that I wasn't talking to myself a whole lot and that I was listening on a very, very deep level. I was so present. I was so in the moment. And I aspire, it's funny to say it like this, but I almost aspire to have a headache at the end of a at the end of a day working with a client. Sounds funny to put it that way. But what I then sort of use that as a teachable moment for clients, I just sort of mentioned, like, imagine how much work it's going to take you to stop listening to the story and to start writing your own and to start dictating to your point, the vision, the idea, that the creation that you are becoming. And if you start to almost retrain the voice to speak to yourself, for yourself in certain ways, as opposed to listen to yourself and allow yourself to do the talking. Like that's that ownership piece that you're talking about. You're saying that I'm tired of the voice that I've been getting, that's been writing all these stories, that's been creating all these perspectives. And I'm now ready to own the fact that it's time to start talking to myself the way I know I need to eventually train this muscle that you're alluding to, which is that of just self-ownership and to be able to shape oneself, right?
And my view is it's not really the hard work. It's about awareness.
Mm,
And I think what happens is most people are just not aware that they've got this voice going on and that they have this concept of themselves
Yeah.
that is driving everything in them.
Yeah.
And so I think we give them a gift when we say, just notice when the narrative goes off track or goes to the autopilot. Just notice it. And in that moment, you choose to take ownership. And what I do is I get people to really write about the future version of themselves who's created this vision.
Right.
So that they feel it, so that that self-concept is already starting to shift. They're feeling it in every cell of their body. And therefore, when that old narrative kicks in, which it will, you go, oh, I'm off track.
Right.
Now you've got own awareness, ownership, and choice. Actually, I would love to go back to this other one. And that takes the hard element out of it and makes it, I think, exciting and makes them realize it's a choice.
Yeah.
And how much would you love that? And how important will it be for you to create that vision? And how would you love to show up at that as that version of yourself?
Yeah. And something you said earlier as well is that when we don't necessarily do make this shift, just choose to do this sort of work, that the way in which we stay in certainty can create stress, and it is stressful. It's just like, this is the way it is. There's nothing I can do about it. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. And yet everything that we're alluding to here is just like, well, geez, Tracy, like this sounds like a decent amount of work that I'm going to be doing. How is that not stressful? And I love that you therefore sort of provided that other side. It's like, work can lead to joy. Work can lead to excitement. Work can lead to opportunity. It's a it's a stressor, but it's not stress, you know, and there's no doubt that there's an opportunity here through this work to move towards this notion of self-concept, which I would love to go to now. And for anybody that maybe is hearing this and going, okay, I don't fully understand what you mean by that, I would love for us to start there. So let's almost take a step back. Tell our listeners, when you say self-concept, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, self-concept is the story and the beliefs that you have about yourself. What is that narrative that you tell yourself about who you are, what you're capable of, and what the impact you have is? And that makes up who you are and how you show up. And often, always, the frustrations we have are a reflection of the concept that we're holding, this story that we're telling ourselves. It's just playing out. But when we know I have the choice of being a leader who's struggling and hitting the wall and frustrated, or I can choose to wake up and change this narrative and choose to show up as a leader who is extracting and expanding the potential of their team, who's being inspirational, who's got this intense curiosity, who is always creating new opportunities. That just changes the way you feel and the way you show up.
Yep.
But we need to intentionally create that and be conscious of it, because this self-concept, the existing one, is, I don't like to use the word hardwired, but it's there. It's been practiced. It's gone down that road a lot. So we need to create another road and become familiar with that. And that takes intentionality, ownership, and clarity.
Yeah, and as opposed to hardwired, you can almost use that word that you used earlier to as the metaphor. It's rooted, right? It's rooted in us. Yeah, and so like I think I love that you even brought that around of the mindset, the self-awareness, the self-concept is like, that's at the heart of the roots. And in many ways, so much in every way almost, that the work starts there at the roots. And so I appreciate the fact that what you're alluding to is that this is embedded within us, and it is something that will take time. It's always one of my favorite sort of moments of humor is when folks can kind of have these awarenesses and then suddenly assume that, well, now I'm aware of it, it's fixed, right? It's changed, right? And it's just like, well, how long did it take for the behavior to become the behavior that it is today? 35, 40, 45, 50 years, whatever it is. And it's just like, okay, so we're aware of it now. And to your point earlier, maybe you're going to start practicing what it means to notice, but that might mean that you've gone from not noticing anything every single day to just once a day noticing, like, okay, that was not necessarily the way I want to be thinking of myself and seeing myself. And from a conceptually, like, I know the self that I'm becoming.
Yes.
And to your point, it is so rooted in terms of who I was and what I've been up to this point that work will take time. And I'm curious, like, how are you maybe coaching people up on just even the patience side of all of this and understanding that we are playing a long game?
We are playing a long game. And just before I go there, if we go
Yeah.
back to some of those inherited beliefs,
Yes.
the inherited beliefs that we are given is the way we develop, the way we get growth ready is by focusing on the trunk above the ground. Look at the actions, look at the skills. When we were running our business, that's where I focused. Of course,
Yeah.
that's what we were told. And I think this is one of the big invisible boxes to really start to dissolve and go, we need to remember that while that is important, it is driven by the roots and by this inner work.
Mhm.
And I believe that this inner work is going to become more and more important as the world changes.
Mhm.
We need to really connect to who we are and how we want to show up.
Yeah, yeah, and I wanna go back now to the business. There's a whole story there around the business that you were once a managing director of, managing partner of, and I think it's important for us to almost hear it from this side. You know, we've done a lot of talk now through the first 20, 25 minutes around so many philosophies and concepts from a coaching perspective, but I always appreciate when someone's kind of come through the very journey that they are now coaching folks on handling and navigating better. So I would love for you just to kind of rewind the years here for us and just tell us a little bit more, give us a bit more context around that journey that you went on with your previous business.
Certainly. Well, so my brother and I had our own business. It was in international oil and gas events. We worked all over the world, very senior levels, presidents, ministers, heads of national companies, oil companies. And over a period of 5 years, we scaled by 450%. And we then ended up exiting for 8 figures. Now I'm making it, Steve, sound like it was all really easy.
Yeah, it sounds so easy. That sounds
It
wonderful.
really wasn't. It was exciting and our heart was there.
Sure.
But boy, I now wish I'd understood the invisible boxes because
Right.
there was frustration, there was anxiety, there were stresses.
Mm.
And the market, we went through oil price crashes, recessions, all sorts of things. The challenge of leading a team of 150 people.
Yeah.
And we focused on what I suspect many of your listeners are. What's the actions? What's the strategies? What are the skills I need and I need to develop?
Mm.
And I got really sort of a pivotal moment in my journey was as we were looking to exit, we brought on a consultant and to look at, we're doing well, but how do we make sure we're really exit ready and we're really maximizing that potential?
Mm.
And he opened my eyes to the fact that we were good profit-wise, we were good strategy-wise, but it was really around the people and understanding how to unlock the team and our leadership.
Mm.
And so that sent me on a journey of discovery of going, okay, it's not just above the ground. Now I realize it's not just above the ground. There's something more.
Yeah.
And so that sent me on a journey of being very curious about what helps us unlock our potential. Because like your listeners out there, you don't want as a leader and a business owner to be knowing that you're leaving potential on the table.
Right.
That's the most frustrating thing. So that's when I trained as a coach to really sort of look at What's the part that I didn't know? What was that invisible box that I was rubbing up against or hitting up against that I need
Yeah.
to free myself
Yeah.
of? And a lot of that was the inner journey. And so I believe that really getting growth ready is about working on yourself, that inner growth that then has the ripple effect on your leadership, on your business, on your own happiness, and on, for me, on the way I parent, on my relationships. And I look and I think, what's been my biggest success is probably really being courageous to go into that inner work and to grow and to understand who I need to be. And that's now helping me scale and create the impact I want to create.
It's good. Well, I'm glad that you at least gave us some more context, that it wasn't quite as simple as you initially made it sound. I think everybody was about to go start. Everybody was about to go start their version of your business. It was like, oh, that sounds really easy. But I think what I really appreciate is this idea that you can go through a journey like that, and you can all like anybody listen to that goes, wow, what a success story. And then you can now be doing the work that you're doing. Yeah. And you're thinking, yeah, but if only I'd known some of this, if only, and I think that's why I appreciate that so much about folks that come on this show, is that through the lens of many, we can look at a Tracy Clark, we can look at so many folks that have been on the show and say, success story, success, position of success. We use this word success all the time. It's very subjective, but at the same time, what we then get to do through conversations like this is get to say, about, yeah, but listen, just because you may look at where I am and see it as a place of success does not mean that the journey to this point could not have been different, could not have been maybe executed to a better standard, to a higher standard, in ways that I could have avoided things that if only I could go back and avoid. And this is what I love about the vulnerability and the insights around these stories, is that we get to understand that growth is messy, growth is ugly at times, growth is damn hard. And through some of these, you know, through some of these true skills that you're helping us understand here today, you start to realize that there is no overnight success. Like it's all built over time. It comes with ups and downs. It comes with things that are out of our control and within our control. But at the same time, it's a journey that we can always find ways to do better and be more ready for. And so I just really appreciate that part of the story, is that it's like, hey, if only, right? If only Tracy could go back knowing what she knows now to talk to Tracy back then,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I think one of the exciting things for me is now I'm working with business owners,
Mhm.
and I'm really sharing with them some of those elements that I wish I had known, and getting their roots, really strengthening their roots, especially with this curiosity, open-mindedness, and proactive experimentation, which I define as a sort of let's play, playfulness mindset. Um, and really helping them understand how to ground those roots, build those roots, nourish those roots, strengthen them so that the tree becomes strong and lasts for decades and centuries.
Yeah, and I now want to go back to the way you answered that opening question, because you didn't just say curiosity, open-mindedness, experimentation. You said intense curiosity, radical open-mindedness, practical experimentation. Like again, it's like, okay, interesting. It's not just doing it, it's doing it to a certain standard is what I'm hearing. It's doing it in a certain way. Why is it you feel that it's important that we not only lean on those principles of curiosity, open-mindedness, etc., but we do it in such a, what I'm hearing, almost exhaustive, intense kind of way?
Yes, it's a very deep way, and to me it's a state of being. It's the way that you show up that's in every part of your life. And I think this intensity, shall we say, is essential because we have these invisible boxes that we don't know are there.
Yeah.
So we need to be open to, maybe there are invisible boxes that I'm not seeing, but actually being curious. Am I feeling them? What is the experience? And it does take that level of curiosity and open-mindedness and willingness to experiment to really realize that those boxes are not only there, but that we can then free ourselves of those boxes.
Yeah, and because as someone who prides himself on being curious, I've said it to some audiences in speeches over the years that you're not going to, you've gone your whole life without ever meeting the most curious man alive, and you're fortunate to meet him today. And I just make that kind of joke, but at the same time, there is this from a curiosity standpoint. It goes back to so much of what we've been speaking about. Is this idea that curiosity is not just simply taking some time to wonder and taking some time to consider what's possible. There's a relentlessness to it. It's just like, yeah, but what else? Yeah, but what else? Yeah, but what else? And that's what I'm hearing so much through what we've discussed so far, is that if you're going to go into discovery, it's almost as you can never assume that you've discovered in order to really practice discovery. Once you've had a discovery, that's great, but that doesn't mean that you're at the end of the discovery process, right?
And I think there's a relentlessness and a depth to it.
Yeah.
And also it's cyclical. So as you grow, you need to go round that, I want to say, wheel of curiosity again. We go, maybe it's not the wheel, but go back to the roots. Who is that next version of myself? How am I showing up? What is that growth? What is the mindset of someone who's 10x the business? What is different? So it's challenging at those different levels. How am I leading a team of 1,000 versus 100? So there's always the curiosity and the testing and the open-mindedness
Yeah.
at every level, at every stage.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to ask now, again, there I was talking about my own curiosity, but we do very similar things for a living. And I'm curious, how do you personally practice it? Obviously, you're guiding people through it so much, but I think anyone who's listened to this is just like, well, maybe I don't have the means to get a coach. Maybe I don't feel I need a coach, but sign me up for greater curiosity. Sign me up for greater open-mindedness. If you personally, Tracy, are working on your own version of that, what might some approaches to that look like?
So I work at different levels, and what I found is I've needed greater, more intense curiosity and more radical open-mindedness as I've gone to the depths of those roots to really understand who I am, how am I showing up, and then I've gone even deeper, which I appreciate isn't for everyone,
Sure.
but into really the nature of reality. Who am I? What is it that shapes my experience? And I know you also come from the world of sport, where things like visualization are talked about. And to me, it's like, why does visualization work? Sure, they talk about neuroscience, and that works. But I've actually been more intrigued as to what's the real reason, what's underneath. And I've done work into, or been curious, shall we say, and open-minded as to, well, who am I? What is this nature of reality? Is it solid and stable, like we were taught at school? Or is it more what the quantum physicists are showing us? Is it actually fluid, coming in and out of form at the speed of 10 to the power of 44 times per second? And is the shape that this quanta, these packets of energy form, are they really shaped by me and my state and how I'm observing them? And if that's true, wow, what's the impact I can create? So I do a lot around self-inquiry. Who am I? Who am I? Am I really this body and this?
Right.
Or actually, am I the journey for me has been, I'm this awareness, but the awareness bringing this experience to life. And therefore is my basic state. I am Tracy who's successful. I'm Tracy who's frustrated. I get to choose how I condition this. And so that is what I'm intentionally curious about on my journey. I appreciate that's not for everyone, But that then has helped me to understand in my journey of, wow, that's why those roots are so important. And wow, there was a deeper level than I even thought.
Right.
Well, I am the awareness. And when I'm there, I feel this connection, this oneness, this fact that I am the creator. And then I get to realize that I have the choice to choose how I show up, which is the self-concept.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that excites me. And I do that every single day because I love doing it and I get immense pleasure and happiness. And it takes me to a real place of peace and serenity and this feeling of excitement that I can create, I can have an impact, I can really make a difference.
Yeah, it's a beautiful depiction of how we can use this work, and I think for me, firstly, what I appreciate is that you're acknowledging the depths of this work, that it isn't necessarily for everybody. That is such an important caveat when we talk about this sort of stuff. However, there are lessons for everybody at whatever, depth of the surface you may find yourself currently. I think.
I
Go ahead.
agree, Steve. And I think that that's where I put the growth ready as being intensely curious and radically open-minded. And that's what I say to people I work with. I'm going to prod you. I'm going to poke you with lots of love.
Yep.
And I'm going to invite you to experiment. Look to your experience. I'm not here to tell you. I'm not here to put a box on you. I'm here to say, look to your experience.
Yeah.
Do it yourself.
Yeah.
Go on that journey. And I think that when we invite with this curiosity and open-mindedness, and I think you're like me with lots of love and encouragement, it's often a lot easier than people think it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I really appreciate about it, the more we've spoken through this, and I see this now, is this notion of, for curiosity to be consistently built upon, we need open-mindedness. The two go hand in hand, and I love that. It's this idea of, as I get more curious, I'm going to discover, I'm going to learn, I'm going to identify certain things, which initially I'm probably going to resist. It's like, well, no, that's when we need the open-mindedness. That's when we need to say, no, I get your desire to resist, but just for a moment, consider that might be the former self. That might be the perspective of old that is trying to speak up right now. Whereas if we can practice the open-mindedness, we can at least just explore whatever this discovery is, explore whatever this idea might be, for just enough time to actually, if you want to disqualify it, then go ahead. But maybe we will eventually come to accept what we initially look to resist.
Yes. And I think that open-mindedness coupled with the experimentation help you, not me, to dissolve that box by yourself.
Right.
So I'm not doing it. I'm inviting you.
Yes.
And I'm inviting you with these three elements: curiosity, open-mindedness, and have a go and see.
Right.
And if it works, great. Then that's, I think, the most powerful way of dissolving these boxes and then making them visible.
Yeah, I really hope that folks will listen to this and they go, okay, if I were to experiment, what would a proactive approach to experimentation look like, as you put it? And get curious, practice open-mindedness, and that in itself is culminating in the proactive approach in order to then go and experiment more clearly, at least with true justification behind it. It's like, I didn't just see this thing online and say, what the heck, I'm going to give it a go. Like, I've actually anchored the experiment in something that is specific and relevant to myself. And I think that's one of the hardest things on our growth journey sometimes, is we're inundated with all this information, that the new fad, the new trend, the new diet, whatever it may be, and it doesn't work for us, and so we assume that nothing works for us. And it's like, nah, whoa, like, can we just take a second here? I know this has been presented to you as the way, but I want you to just consider for a moment that it's just a way. Like, it could just be a way, and that there's other ways of doing it, and that in itself as I'm learning through this conversation, it's like that's the proactive element to the experimentation, right?
Absolutely. And it's really about being playful.
Mm.
And playfulness is something that I've lent into more and more. I resisted it, I have to admit it first. Playfulness in business, that's right,
Right.
serious. But I've really seen that when we go back to that more childlike state, we play with possibility and we change. I mean, do you remember when you were a child, you'd be an astronaut, then a rock star, then a football star,
Right.
all in the space of a few minutes.
I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. I don't need to pretend like they're doing it every day. They're doing it every day. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what we want to go back to, playing and
Right.
doing it with non-attachment. I'm going to have a go give it a go.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, that's okay. But maybe there'll be a learning. And then it's being curious about, what did I learn about myself or the process?
Yeah.
So playfulness to me, I think, is one of the most powerful leadership states that is just not recognized and not given enough attention to. And it's something that's part of my aim, is to really bring it to the forefront and go, playfulness to me is about intense curiosity, radical open-mindedness, and proactive experimentation. And that makes you growth ready. And that gives you a competitive edge.
Well, why not finish right where we started? And that's what we're gonna do right here. And I want folks to hear that almost call to action that I'm hearing there at the end is, if a lot of what we've shared here and discussed today comes across as like, wow, where do I start? Where do I start? I invite you to go play initially. Just go play in the idea of curiosity and open-mindedness and see what you come up with, and see it as play. Don't put too much expectation on it. Don't be hard on yourself when you don't get the result you initially want to. But if you see it as play, then there's an opportunity here for you just to simply say, hey, if I play in it and I'm willing to play in it every day for a significant period of time, what might come from that? What might come from that initial work? And so I heard that call to action. I hope others hear it too. But Tracy, I'm just so appreciative. Go ahead, please.
I have one thing, which is I've developed a leadership success scorecard, which is completely free, which talks about playfulness. And in there, it would give, if people, it takes like 3 or 4 minutes to complete, there you've got elements that you can be playful with. So do take it, and you get a whole report with lots of areas that you could be playful around. So it's something I'm really passionate about. I'm really passionate about giving back.
Yeah.
And I realize not everyone can afford you and me.
Yeah.
But actually, I want to make a difference. And so that's something I'll happily give you the link, and people can.
I appreciate it. And that was my last question anyway. It was just simply, before I let you go, let us all know firstly where we can learn more about you. And so therefore we will certainly be including that link in the episode show notes. But in addition to that, Tracy, where else can we learn more about you and read all the things we need to read?
Yeah, LinkedIn is where I'm the most present. I haven't been present as much over this summer, I have to admit, because I'm writing my book.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm always around LinkedIn.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Well, good. And this is an open invite. Once that book's finalized and it's worked the rounds a little bit, I'd love to grab a copy of my own, and maybe we can come back on the show down the road and discuss everything that it has to offer as well. But Tracy, this has been a delight, and I'm just so thankful for the generosity of insight, and best of luck with everything you've got going on in your world. And just thanks again for the time today.
Thank you. And thank you for such an inspirational and natural conversation. It was wonderful.
You're so welcome. And my thanks again to Tracy for joining us on this episode. And my ask of you is to consider choosing discovery and refraining from certainty. It sounds like a really strange ask, I know, but just hear me out for a moment. Typically, if we are in search of simple certainty, we are not going to take many risks. We are not going to consider what is possible. We are just going to go with what we know to be true and stay there. And a lot of the time when we try to just live within certainty, we actually choose comfort. Discovery comes with discomfort. Discovery comes with challenges. Discovery comes with a need to question what is happening right now and how could it be different. There's an opportunity there for you to consistently learn by leaning into the idea of discovery. Now, there are certain things in life, obviously, that we want certainty. We want to know how much money we're making. We want to know that the people that we love the most are going to be right where we want them to be when we need them to be there. Those things we obviously want certainty in. But when it comes to your personal growth journey, if you're operating in a state of certainty, or at least wanting to just simply know what is and what is not, then you're going to be a little stuck. You're going to be experiencing a lot of the same things a lot of the time. And you may be okay with that, but typically people that listen to this show aren't okay with that. You are looking to grow and you are ready to grow. And if you're ready to grow, you need to lean into the idea of discovery. So where could you be more proactive when it comes to your ability to discover? I'm going to leave that one with you, give you some opportunity to reflect on that and give it some thought. Where can I be practicing and be proactive towards how I discover more consistently? Again, my thanks to Tracy for joining us, and always my thanks to you for taking the time to listen to the episode. Don't let this be the only time you've listened or the last time that you've listened. Take the time to subscribe. Make sure you're reviewing the show, and go ahead and share this with folks within your world as well. It would be crazy to keep this kind of content to yourself and not share it with somebody else so that you could be this resource of impact to them too. Best of luck with anything and everything you've got going on in your world, and I look forward to doing this again with you very soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to Growth Ready. If you liked what you heard and are feeling ready to grow, be sure to leave a 5-star rating, subscribe to the show, and share the episode with someone you know is ready to fuel their growth journey today. We love our community, so don't hesitate to reach out to us at podcast@growthready.com. And until next time, we are Growth Ready, and you will be too.